Most reviews of Fantasy Life I were completely wrong about its multiplayer features, due to the simple reason of most reviewers just not playing long enough of the game in order to get their video out quickly on YouTube, so they just don't know what there is to do in the game when it comes to the multiplayer features. I'm here to tell you that the more you progress through the game itself, the more the multiplayer features will open up for you, and the more multiplayer you play, the quicker you'll get good gear and you'll get good stuff, which makes it easier for your single player game, which is a very hard balance to get for a video game, but Fantasy Life I nails it completely, making sure you'll have an enormously good time with your friends or strangers. Hi there, fellow Nintendo gamers. I am Veggie Vulture, a gamer who is into the social aspects of video games. And today I want to talk about Fantasy Life and its multiplayer features, because Fantasy Life for me strikes that super hard, difficult balance between single player and multiplayer. And there's few video games that actually do it as well as Fantasy Life I. But I also want to set something straight, because there's a lot of talk about Fantasy Life I in the last couple of weeks when it released, and after it's got like it switched to upgrade and that kind of stuff. It's a really nice looking game on Switch. It runs really well on Switch, but a lot of people were a little bit disappointed about its multiplayer features due to there wasn't enough to do in the game. That's what everybody was saying. But most of these people were spitting out reviews in like the first day after it came out. They might have been able to play early due to picking it up as a pre-order, that kind of stuff. But for me, the more I play Fantasy Life I, the more I enjoy actually its multiplayer features. So I just want to go over its multiplayer features and why I love it to death. Now, very quickly, all of this is coming from a gamer who's not into cozy games and has never been into cozy games. I've been seeing reviews of Fantasy Life I when it was coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I was like interested, and it piqued my interest, but I was still like on the fence about it because I just don't like cozy games. And I don't like cozy games for a few simple reasons. First of all, most of the time they resolve around like one mechanic, and the multiplayer features of said video games are often considered an afterthought, which is not the case with Fantasy Life I. First of all, Fantasy Life I has every genre of cozy game, and I mean like an island builder, and there is an RPG with a story. It's not like a 10 out of 10 story, but it's like a 7.5, and at times even an 8 story. There's farming. Did I say farming? Island building. There's this open world, Breath of the Wild kind of style, where you can go do all kinds of challenges. It's a dungeon delver with like gear, and you can set up gear, and with like all of that like metagaming stuff that a RPG tends to have. All of that combined into one incredible video game. And I took a chance on it. I bought it, and I haven't been able to put it down. Me, not a cozy gamer. So even if you're kind of like more into like multiplayer games, or you're just like cozy games aren't your cup of tea, Fantasy Life I is just really worth checking out. I wanted to get that out of the way really quickly. Now, what is there to do in Fantasy Life when it comes to the multiplayer features? Well, there's actually three main things to do for you when it comes to multiplayer features, and one of those things is actually really built to play multiplayer. You can do it solo. It's quite hard to do solo when you get further into it, and that is the growths on your island. Your island, at a certain point, particular time in the story, you get a growth, which is basically a dungeon, but it is a randomly generated dungeon. It can be a monster dungeon, a mining dungeon, a tree chopping dungeon, which is like wood cutting, right? Fishing dungeon, all of that stuff, right? This dungeon is completely randomly generated. It's full of monsters, it's full of treasure, it's full of like stuff to gather, and once you go completely through the dungeon and you complete the end boss, or the end challenge, I should say, you can reset the dungeon to be completely different again, randomly generated, but also harder. The more you do this, the more you clear it, the harder it gets. And at first, it's pretty damn easy, right? At first, you're like, okay, breezing through it, and then it gets a little bit too hard to do by yourself, and then you can invite a friend, they can run through it with you, and you're like, oh, now it's a breeze again. But the more you do it, the more it gets harder and harder and harder. And I've actually joined a few people online in their growths, and there were some final bosses and endgame, like like really hard growths that I did already. Me just being like, I don't know, a level 50 paladin or something, which isn't that high even. But I just like running after the other guys and just like also hitting the creature and dodging its attacks, its area of effect attacks and that kind of stuff. So this is like really a dungeon crawler. And if it's so good that it could be a game by itself. If this was like a 15 euros or dollars eShop title that had just a growth system with the like slight crafting mechanics in order to get like new gear and that kind of stuff, it would be great. But that is just a really small part of the game, which I personally think, at this very point in time, I think it's the most fun part of the game. Just joining another person's world. Mostly you just spawn at their island. By the way, you can run around at their island, check it out, and then they launch the game and you get into that grove and you go dungeon delving together. Which is like one small part of the game, especially designed for multiplayer. And I really like that because a lot of these cozy games, even Animal Crossing, right? Animal Crossing is like, for a lot of people, like the cozy games of cozy games. And then there's Stardew Valley. Multiplayer in those games is often considered an afterthought. And although there's some mechanics that are really designed for multiplayer, they're few and far in between. It's always like, oh, I'm just gonna put in some mechanics here and there in order so that people can play multiplayer and can enjoy multiplayer if they like. But actually putting it in and putting thought into like, how can we make it so that people continuously want to visit each other's islands, clear each other's groves, and help each other out in order to have this game, the longevity of this game is just increases a lot, because a lot of people will like continue playing because their friends start playing. Maybe in 2 months from now, one of my friends starts playing this game, and I will probably relaunch the game in order to do some growth with him so he can power level quicker, get some good gear, I can craft gear for him, that kind of stuff. I love the growth system, which is a dungeon crawler by itself, and it's incredible amounts of fun. Then there is the second part, and here is where most reviewers thought the game was a little bit too limiting when it comes to the multiplayer features. And that is just the overworld, like the main world where your game takes place, which is like your islands, and like a bunch of different islands the story takes place. I don't want to spoil it, this is not like a review of the story or that kind of stuff. Now, all across these islands, of course, are monsters to fight. There is stuff, little dungeons you can clear, little secrets you can uncover. There's overworld bosses, which at first are hard, but then after a while aren't that hard anymore, especially if you're playing with multiple friends who are like one spellcaster and one paladin and one healer, that kind of stuff. It's fun to run around and go do all of these things, but it can feel a little bit limiting until you reach the end game. Now, I haven't reached the end game myself. I'm like right at that point where I need to do the last thing the game wants me to do, but there's this like quite a big content wall in the way that I need to clear first in order to be able to do that thing. After that, I will do the end. I will talk about the end game on this channel, but the end game, basically, I already know what's going on because I searched it for this video. There's more overworld stuff with harder bosses, harder challenges, and harder stuff to do. Now, this is where the game is a little bit limiting because as soon as you go into a multiplayer session, like one of your friends makes a session, you go to their island, like Animal Crossing style. You're on their island, you can walk around, do like basic stuff, but your story progression and all of that stuff is tied to your single player. So you are not progressing your story. Now, they already changed a few things. The developers, level 5, great people, are listening because they already changed that your life goals, which are your classes, for example, you need to chop like 20 chestnut trees or whatever, I don't know, that progresses while you are in multiplayer. It used to be so, like a few weeks ago, it used to be so that when you go into a multiplayer session, it paused that. Now it still it still counts when you do it in multiplayer, but like your story, your main story stuff is all set on pause, so it can feel a little bit limiting, but also at the same time, it's just fun to run around the world with a friend. They're just going from A to B, and you're like running after them, and you're just like defeating monsters together, and just like gathering all of these materials together that you need. And a friend of mine, like Sam, the person that I play Nintendo games with, he's like, hey man, I can build like this incredible cool shield if I have this item. And then we're like, where is that item? Oh, that boss drops that item. Let's go to that boss. And it kind of starts feeling like this MMORPG, but more contained, if that makes any sense. And then there is Ginormosia. Just another part of the map. You go through a teleportation gate and you come into like this big ass open world island that's divided into provinces, and you can completely run from A to B there. When you're playing solo, part of your story will be there, right? But you need to like unlock all kinds of towers, and these towers will like clear the fog of war for that particular area of the map, and then you can clear the entire map. And it's full of like little villages that help you out, traveling merchants, monsters, mining challenges, wood chopping challenges, fishing challenges. There's mimics, there's overworld bosses, there are mini dungeons, there are shrines of light, which are basically Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild shrines that you need to clear. You need to clear most of those in order to be able to progress into the end game of the game. So make sure to do every now and then do one of those if you don't know what to do in Fantasy Life I, if it ever happens that you know what to do in Fantasy Life I. But then if you're not playing single player, if you're playing multiplayer like I love to do, you can jump into Ginormosia together, and now you can clear the world together, and you're always in the instance of the world that is of the host, if that makes any sense. So my friend Sam, for example, invites me to their game and we jump into Ginormosia, right? We're running around doing that thing. Ginormosia at first, every province is level 1. So all of the creatures are like easy, and all of the challenges and the overworld bosses are easy. But the more you progress and the more you do in each province, the higher it goes, it's going to get in level. At the end, when it's like level, I don't know what the highest level is, but if it's like in the highest level, you get like these incredibly difficult, almost endgame-like bosses, challenges, other like puzzles and stuff, places to find and that kind of stuff, and stuff to do, basically. Making this also an almost never-ending thing you can do with a friend. Now, the growths are really never-ending. You can completely respawn growths until the end of time, and they will completely change every time because they're randomly generated. But Ginormosia is more like set in stone what it is, but it's so big, it will give you... I can see somebody putting 50, 60 hours into Ginormosia with a friend and still not, like, reaching everything and doing everything in Ginormosia and still finding fun in that. That is how big Fantasy Life I is in the multiplayer parts of it. Now, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, is far less limiting in its multiplayer department than a lot of people were thinking in the beginning. And the more you play the single player, the more islands you open up as in your single player file, so the more you can do in multiplayer. The longer you play single player or multiplayer, the more difficult your Ginormosia map and your growths will get. So more interesting multiplayer sessions for you to have. But if you do multiplayer with a friend, you will be grabbing and finding good gear or good items in order to craft good gear much faster, making you stronger for your single player game. And I really love that back and forth of when I'm doing single player, I know it's going to have effect on my multiplayer experience. If I do multiplayer, I know it's going to have effect on my single player experience. And it is almost never ending, and it's insane amounts of fun. By the way, my friend code is below this video. Add me to your Nintendo Switch 2 thingy. I'm playing on Nintendo Switch 2. And yeah, subscribe to this channel if you're new. Hit the thumbs up, hit the bell. Put in the comments if you don't agree with me. If you're like, no, Veggie Vulture, you're completely, utterly wrong. And this is why. Just be civil and we can have a conversation about it.